Hello, hello, beautiful souls. We are live today doing the energy report on the solar eclipse in Aries. So please leave me a comment if you're jumping on live. Say hello. Let me know you're here. Let me know how we sound. For those of you who were here this morning live, some of you know we had to try this a few times to get it going. Thank you so much for hanging in with me on this. And we're here, so yay. All right, so today we're going over the solar eclipse in Aries and what it means for each sign of the zodiac. This eclipse is a big deal. So I want to tell you just a little bit about eclipses. Then we're going to talk about this particular eclipse and what the main energetic signature is. It's not an easy one, guys. It's not an easy one, but we will talk about it. And then we'll go through each sign of the zodiac and give a breakdown of what every single sign can kind of expect. Now, remember, the biggest thing to always remember on eclipses is that the energy of the eclipse can actually manifest anytime in the next 6 months until the following eclipse. Okay, so even though at the moment of the eclipse, if you're looking at the right, if you're watching this reading and it's April 8th and you're like, all this stuff is happening. Even that being said, the main energy signature of the eclipse can come to pass at any time during the next 6 months. It could be right before the next eclipse. So it's good to keep that in mind whenever you're listening to an eclipse report, is that energy snapshot sort of becomes an energetic overlay on top of all the other snapshots that we have at any particular time. If you are someone who gets scared of eclipse season or gets worried something bad's going to happen, I want to remind you, don't be scared. Don't be scared, because the thing is, we're all okay. So eclipses happen roughly every 6 months. And that energy shows up in the next 6 months, which means at any time in our life, we are always under the influence of an eclipse, the last eclipse that happened. And while sure, there are challenging things that happen in life, eclipses, they do bring change, right? Sometimes it's good change. And even when the changes aren't easy, it's like, I don't want you to spend your life afraid of the next eclipse and then afraid of the next one and then afraid of the next one. Because let's not waste our lives getting scared of what the energy is going to do to us. Let's use it to our benefit, which I know is what you guys want to do. And that's why you're on this channel. So Carolyn's here. Good morning. NC is here. Yay, yes, you can see me. We got it working. I actually do need to check the audio really quick, guys. So let me just go ahead and do that. Hopefully we are good on that. And that will take me a moment. Those of you who are here, say, hey, let me know how you're doing since yesterday. Oh, yes, we're good. I just checked it. Oh my gosh, it's a miracle. All right, so let's talk about this eclipse cycle as a cycle, because we have normally eclipses come in pairs. Sometimes we'll see 3 in a row, but generally it's going to be 2. And sometimes it changes, but oftentimes it's going to be signs that are opposite each other. So we know we're going to see changes on the Libra Aries axis in our chart. So for example, Aries or Libra risings, that's going to be your 1st and 7th houses that are going to be affected, where we're going to see the most change. So that's relationships, major significant other people in your life, and your life direction. So when eclipses are in like your 1st house, that's when you're going to see like the big moving, making big moves, making big changes, getting into relationships or getting out of relationships, things that are more life-defining often. Now, there's other things we can look at to see if the eclipse is going to kind of hit us harder or not. And so I don't want to get too much into the technical stuff, though. But basically, there's a planet that is ruling the eclipse, which means since this solar eclipse is in Aries, we're looking at Mars. And for the lunar eclipse in Libra, which happens on the 25th of March, if you haven't seen that video, you can still watch that. I recommend watching both of these. But for that lunar eclipse, we're looking at Venus. And so of the two eclipses, the solar eclipse in Aries or the lunar eclipse in Libra, I'm saying the lunar eclipse feels better. Why? Because Venus during this eclipse is in Pisces, which is her best place to be. Now, Saturn's there, so that makes it, not as wonderful as it could be. But when it comes to the solar eclipse, Mars is also in Pisces. So both of these eclipses are ruled by planets in Pisces. And what other planet is hanging out in Pisces right now? Saturn. So this would be a good time to go back and rewatch my video on Saturn in Pisces, because Saturn in Pisces is a 2-year transit, 2.5-year transit. And I did a whole video talking about the themes we might see during the time in the world. And also in that video also has how Saturn and Pisces will affect you. So that's another thing you can look at after this if you want to know more about that. So Saturn and Pisces is kind of, to me, one of the significations of Saturn and Pisces is like authorities let us down. We're let down by authorities. Someone who is an authority in our world or an authority in our life is not able to fulfill their responsibilities for some reason. Now, in our individual lives, this is going to show up more in the area that we have Saturn, right? So if it's in your 7th house of relationships, well, maybe certain people you depended on in the past, you're just not able to depend on anymore. And now it's time to step up and do the things that you would have other people help you with, or, have more independence in your relationships. Or sometimes the 7th is like setting boundaries in relationships, but it has to do with Pisces type things. So I feel like I'm getting a little sidetracked here. But back to how Saturn in Pisces is going to affect this eclipse season. It kind of does mean that we're going to have to deal with issues of faith, issues of belief. So that's going to be on the world stage, but also in our own lives. Like, do we believe we are connected to the world? Do we live in a friendly universe? And one of my favorite keywords for Saturn and Pisces is sacrifice. Pisces can be a very self-sacrificial sign, not always, but it can be. And the good of the collective, the good of the whole are things that we definitely think of when we think of Pisces. Inspiration, dreaminess, right? But with Saturn here, it brings this feeling of like really getting serious about dreams, doing the hard work related to things that we're dreaming about, but also having to step up and take responsibility for our dreams, our inspiration, and figure out what is worth sacrificing for. So this is something we're all kind of learning at this time. All right, so we can bring up the chart. Actually, before we bring up the chart, let's talk about who is most affected by this eclipse. We have actually I have to look at what degree it is here. So the solar eclipse in Aries on April 8th is happening at 19 degrees of Aries. So who's most affected by that? We're going to see our Aries, Libra, Cancer, and Capricorn, Sun, Moon, or Rising. So if your Sun, Moon, or Rising are in those cardinal signs of Aries, Cancer, Libra, or Capricorn, this eclipse will affect you more. If you have planets, personal planets at the following degrees, I'm going to say from, let's say 14 to 24, I guess we could say between 14 and 24 degrees of Aries, Cancer, Libra, or Capricorn. If you have personal planets there, so that's the Sun, the Moon, your Rising, Venus, or Mars, or Mercury. If you have any of those planets within those places, this eclipse will also affect you more. And, we can even go a step further and say if you have planets in the fire signs between 14 and 24 degrees, although the trines usually, because it's a trine, usually it's not going to hit as hard. But if you have planets in those signs, the eclipse is also making an angular relationship. So it is usually a more ease with making the change. But that doesn't mean the change that the eclipse produces is easy. Does that make sense? So the change that you have the eclipse encouraging or manifesting in your life, if you have planets trine that, it's easier to make that change. But it doesn't mean the change itself is an easy change to make. It could be a really hard change, but those planets make it easier to implement that change, which is still possibly difficult. Okay, and the reason I'm saying hard and difficult, and I'm using all these words like it's not going to be very fun, is because, and let me pull up our chart for this. Let me get our chart up here. No, we want it like, let's do this. All right. Yeah, so yes, so we have our chart here. And let me see, can I zoom it in? Yes, I can. So we're looking at this 19 degrees of Aries. That's the eclipse. It's with the North Node. So what makes it a solar eclipse is the sun and moon are together. It's with the North Node. So the North Node eclipses are more about what we're focusing on, what we're moving toward. So are solar eclipses. So because it's a solar North Node eclipse, this one's about what we're driven to accomplish. There's really a forward motion here of like, what are we changing? What are we getting courageous about? And with Chiron here in the sign, I just realized it's at 19 degrees. So this eclipse is conjunct Chiron. So this means that we are going to be overcoming our fear of what we're not capable of in our Aries house. And we'll go through each sign to identify what that means for each sign. And why I'm saying, oh, this eclipse is so hard, it's going to be so difficult, is because we have, for every eclipse, we look at the planet that rules the eclipse. So because the solar eclipse is in Aries, we're looking at Mars. Mars is at Pisces, but look who's hanging out with Mars. Saturn is, at the very next degree, making that conjunction to Mars. So we need to talk about what Saturn-Mars means to understand the energy of this eclipse. So when Mars is with Saturn, when it's in a conjunction like this does some things. Some of the keywords for Saturn-Mars are like, you want to go fast, but you have to go slow. Mars is like a Ferrari. Saturn's like a semi-truck blocking the Ferrari. It can't get under, it's not high enough, and you just have to wait. And you are so capable of going faster, but you just have to wait. So there's a feeling of sort of patiently building. There's also a feeling of endurance with Mars-Saturn, where people with Mars-Saturn in their chart tend to have a lot of endurance, but that's one of those things where it's because they have to. It's because they just, there's no other way. Like they have to have that endurance. All right. So with this, what else did I want to talk about? Yeah, there's a little more with Saturn Mars. So even though Saturn restricts Mars and kind of forces Mars to go slower than it wants to go, which means our will, our passion, our action, our determination, there's going to be something that we're focusing on that we want to go for that we have to do slowly, we have to do the right way, or we have to do in a way that like we have to slowly build it. We can't cut corners, we can't like win the lottery, we have to just slowly get one client at a time. It's like the beginning stages of something where it doesn't have momentum yet. It's like pushing a car where you have to really push it really hard to get it moving. That's the feeling of this eclipse. But there's still something else positive here because in order to have that kind of endurance around something, in order to take the time to push so hard, you have to really care about a thing enough to do it. So there's something about this time that we will be maybe willing to see what we're really devoted to. Maybe we will be like tackling something really tough that we know we want to do, that we've been thinking about doing, and now's the time to make it happen. Now's the time to slowly build for the future and to, have a dream worth building for, have a dream worth sacrificing for. Now, the other side of Saturn Mars is that Mars stimulates Saturn. So Mars can help us in a way on a personal level when it was with Saturn, because it makes those Saturn qualities stronger. Now, some people might think, well, that's bad because that's limitations and that's, strict, paperwork or rules or regulations or speed bumps, things that make us follow the rules. But it's also our will and our discipline and our integrity. One of the things that Saturn doesn't really get credit for, I don't think, is the fact that it also rules integrity. And so people who are very Saturnian are the ones who are going to do the right thing. They're the ones who are going to follow the rules. And they will not lie to cover you if you were called in sick and you weren't really sick. Saturn people will not do that, right? They will be trusted and put in positions of authority because they don't budge in certain ways. And we need some of this, right? We need the people who are going to know when not to lose their cool, or know when not to act on emotion, and have that structure. So Mars can help us on a personal level in this eclipse to stimulate Saturn qualities like discipline, hard work. And, for some people, maybe it's your diet that you're working on. For others, maybe it's some kind of work goal, or for others, maybe it's something you're helping your kids with, right? It could be anything. But Mars helps Saturn become more solid, more firm, more disciplined, more, like when you need to say no, this is a good combination to have. Because it's like nothing can stop you from whatever your will is or whatever your final word is. That's the final word. Okay. Now, going back to Chiron being here for just a moment, because Chiron adds an energy of this eclipse of making it feel like this is something that is hard for us, that we've avoided, that maybe we've stopped ourselves from in some way, and that now we are either through external events or through our internal motivation, we are deciding to go for now. So that's kind of the positive of Chiron, is that the way to work with a Chiron wound is to go through the wound. And Chiron in Aries is the wound of feeling like you can't do things, the wound of feeling like you're not capable. So we are all going to have to face where we feel like we're not capable in our Aries house, and maybe have some discipline and hard work in our Pisces house in order to make that Aries house stuff happen, right? It's almost like we limit the things of the Pisces house and have, more toughness there, or more coldness there, or more strictness there, so that that Aries house stuff can be pushed. It's like all that energy gets conserved for that. Okay, let me pull up my timer so we can see, so I can start. Do you guys want to do a Q&A after this one? I was thinking of that because we did that last time. So leave me a comment in the chat if you guys want to do that. And if we get like 10 people who say yes, then we'll go ahead with it. All right. Okay, so I'm going to get this onto Aries. So let's back this up. Okay, actually, yeah. So here we go with Aries. Let me start the timer. For Aries, Sun, Moon, and Rising, the solar eclipse in Aries is going to be about you. It's all about you. It's your first house, and it really is about what in life have you felt limited from that now you're going to go after? And with Mars, Saturn in that 12th house, what fears are you facing in order to be able to do that? um, Josh, I just saw your comment. Yes, times 10. Okay, so back to Aries though. Eclipses in the first house are strong because it's like, again, this is the time where you move somewhere or you have a new relationship or have a new job or something else that's life defining. It can also have to do with something with your body. So it's possible for some Aries, this is like working out or wanting to reach a new level of physical transformation in something that has been a pain point for you about your physical appearance. The first house being physical appearance, some people could, for example, get plastic surgery at this time, right? Not everyone will, but with Venus here and with, Chiron, it's like if you always hated your nose and you want to get plastic surgery on your nose, this could be the time where you decide to do that. It could be something like that. All right, what else? Okay, let me think here. The Mars being in the 12th house, though, makes me feel like this feels like a more tough one for Aries, you guys, because Saturn in the 12th is like fears of things you don't even know what you're afraid of. It's like when you're afraid of that the hand of the universe is going to come along and wipe something away. Saturn in the 12th is fears you don't even know you have, right? It's stuff that we bury deep in our subconscious. We don't want to see it because it sucks. And with Mars here, Mars is stimulating that. So it's almost like this can be a cycle where Aries are facing some fears. And those fears could be something like getting sober, right? It could be something like that, or having some kind of recovery in your life from something, recovery from an accident, going to a hospital, spending time recovering. It could be recovering from, sometimes it's recovery from mental illness and stuff, but I'm not predicting that. And I mean, it just feels like a whole new life for you. Now, Mars for you guys rules you, and Saturn is going to rule your 10th and 11th houses. So this could also be a time where Aries are working behind the scenes to do something that is going to be more life-changing. But whatever work that you're doing, and it does feel like you might be working a lot behind the scenes, either working a lot behind the scenes or having a pause from work or more vacation or more time out to ponder and meditate, one or the other, or both. But having that 10th ruler in the 12th and having it stimulated by Mars, it's like, it's just like you have lots of work to do, but it's not work that people are seeing. It's work behind the scenes. It's work that is private, or it's being hidden for right now. It's not ready to be revealed. And this eclipse is maybe about you creating a new identity through something private or unseen. For some people, this could have to do with your spiritual life and your spirit guides and really something like that. For others, it might be more along the lines of facing a resentment you have had and seeing it and going deeper into it for the purpose of healing, or something along those lines where it's about seeing the pain and feeling the pain, but so that you can kind of do the Saturn thing and face it, step up to it, feel it, and accept that it happened, whatever it is. Let me think of what else might be happening here. You might have challenges with groups of friends at this time. You might need to walk away from a job or a group of friends at this time because Mars severs and Mars is hitting Saturn, which is the 10th and 11th ruler. So this could be you choosing to end a job, you choosing to end a friendship, or more likely leave a group of people that it might not be like, oh, I hate these people, I gotta go. It might be like, my time here is done and it's time to move on. But that during this cycle, the severing or the separating from, especially from people or from jobs that are not good for you, is going to be highlighted. But it can also just be a job ends and now you're a new version of you, because who are you without that job? Or a group of friends, or a group of people that you connected with are now you're not connected with them, and it's like, who am I without these people? It's sort of like that new beginning, the quest of, and this could be intentional. Aries could be like, I'm going overseas, I'm leaving all my stuff behind, and here we go, right? It could be something positive and exciting like this, but it could also be something a little more unplanned or unexpected, where there is a loss of a job and the friends go with it, or there's a loss of a relationship and the friends go with it, kind of a thing. So we'll have to see what each Aries, how that plays out. But overall, there is a lot of potential for a new you, and you're going to probably be really focused on whatever happens, you reacting to it with like, oh, now I'm going to glow up. Now I'm going to become my best version. Now I'm going to lose a bunch of weight. So it's like, even amidst something being lost, there's this like almost like freedom and independence that I feel for you during it or afterwards, that is like, all right, we're going to just, that person dumped me, now we're going to be the hottest version of ourselves, this kind of like redemption almost. So that's what I have for Aries. We're going to go ahead and move on now to the next sign, which is Taurus. For Taurus, this is happening in your, let's see, the solar eclipse in the 12th house with Mars and Saturn in the 11th house. So some of you are going to really dive into 12th house things. So what that could be is connecting with your spirit guides or your spiritual life. For some people, this might be something like seeking counseling or seeking some kind of support that helps you understand your subconscious mind, really diving into the subconscious mind and understanding what motivates you, fearlessly seeking, like it's almost like fearlessly seeking what you're afraid of, right? Or fearlessly shining a light on things you haven't yet been able to see. And some of you, it's more about becoming your own spiritual teacher, or learning some kind of spiritual or psychological study that will help you to help other people. The 12th house not only talks about our own subconscious mind and our things we don't see, it's also like the collective a bit. The 12th house and sometimes the 11th house, I see these planets or see these houses sort of like the 12th house is like the collective unconscious, right? So some of you are going to be reading Freud and Jung and getting into, or Edgar Cayce or something, where you're really getting into that. Others of you might be doing some kind of activities that help you really feel like you can hear almost hear the cries of people's subconscious, or, something like that. And then with Mars ruling the eclipse up here in the 11th house of friends and, colleagues, this might be a time for Taurus of some kind of isolation as well. Sometimes the 12th house is also where you remove yourself from your day-to-day work. And with that eclipse, the lunar eclipse having been in Libra, it's really highlighted for Tauruses at this time that you guys might focus on taking some time out. That might be a retreat. It might be meditating. It might be going to another country, to a temple or something, like a temple stay, or it could be even in your own town, going to like a monastery or some kind of temple there. It might be For some, it might be recovering from something. So, some people might be like at home more or bedridden for a certain amount of time, or having that isolation in that form. But there is some kind of isolation that will be absolutely evident for Taurus in the next 6 months. And if you're doing this intentionally, it's like, I'm afraid of the darkness, so I'm going to go on a dark retreat, or something like that, where it's like, you have this fear and you want to just go straight toward it. For others, this might be a little bit more of a challenge, where like you break a bone and you have to stay home for like 6 weeks or something. And it's like, there's that part of you that's like, I don't like sitting here, right? And having to kind of sit with that part of you and face that, or learn some tools to deal with those feelings. That could be happening. And then with Mars Saturn, there's also this potential of like spiritual sacrifice. So this feels like the highest potential for Taurus during this time is going on some kind of spiritual quest, or making some sacrifices, or spending less time with your friends and more time alone to kind of understand things, or hear your spirit guides, or learn about your spirituality, or something like that. With Mars Saturn here, Mars ruling your 12th house, but also Saturn ruling the 9th and 10th house, you might cut off a trip that you were going to take. You might stop something that's 9th house or 10th house. So that could be stopping a course of study because you realize you don't want to. You're in school, you're at university, and you're like, you did 2 years and now you're going to stop. You're going to quit. Or quitting what else could be 9th house? Stopping learning a language or something like that. Like maybe you realize something 9th house that you did, like learn a language, go to another country, deal with a foreigner, travel is an ending, or it's like coming back from a trip possibly. And then with that 10th house, it doesn't necessarily mean your job's going to end for sure. That's one potential here, but it's like the cutting off of something 10th house. So it might be more for Tauruses that maybe it could be your authority at work gets cut, right? Like you are a manager, now you get demoted, or your hours at work change, or especially if you as a Taurus do work with groups of people. This could be you either honing those skills and getting better at doing that work, especially if it's like teaching or something. It's like teaching privately. But if that doesn't apply, it can also be you're seeing less people when you are at work. Your amount of connection with others gets cut and it's more isolating. Or your boss gets cut. It could be that too. Overall, though, for Tauruses, the way to work with this is to consciously let yourself shine that light on how you feel when you're by yourself and what's going on in that subconscious mind. And really, if you're a Taurus and you have planets in Aries, really pay attention to those planets, because those planets are going to get lit up by all this going on here. And so that's going to help you see what in that 12th house you might be focusing on. And it does feel like a time where you might be less social. And if you are less social, it's like for the purpose of growing your spiritual world, or being a hermit, or isolating yourself for a time, maybe even with Pluto in the 10th here, to figure out what work feels the most aligned possibly. So that's what I got for our Tauruses. Let's go now to Geminis. Okay, Geminis, we have this happening. Let me make this bigger. We have this happening for you guys in the 11th house of friends, groups, acquaintances, any kind of groups of people. So I like this, Gemini, because this is like a new beginning, new energy and focus and determination toward meeting new people. You can make a lot of new friends, or you could be networking. Networking is highlighted because the eclipse is ruled by Mars, Saturn in the 10th. So it's almost like working hard in your 10th house of work, making sacrifices, being really busy with responsibilities so that you can grow your audience or so that you can grow your network, grow your client, your client list. But it's not just your client list, right? Because that would have been in the 7th house. Because it's in the 11th house, it's like the next level, right? So let's say you're a Gemini who's a coach, who's like a life coach. This would be the time where you probably are going to be motivated or want to reach more people by creating things that are like create some passive income, create some courses or something else where you can take what you know and what you teach and what you already have worked on mastering, especially since March of 2023. So what have you mastered in the last year that now you're ready to bring to more people? Geminis could be doing that. For others, this could also be a time where work is hard and you have more friends. And it's like, it's not like you're working hard because you want to have more friends. It's just you're working hard and you're playing hard. You're working hard and you're enjoying your life, or you have a lot of responsibility you're stepping up to at work and you're meeting new people or having more time, spending more time with the friends that you have. For those Geminis who may be like artists or have any kind of creative work, the 11th, 5th house means you're letting go of, from that solar eclipse, that lunar eclipse in Libra, letting go of the need to be like, I'm the one singing the song, to that 11th house where you're like, okay, what songs do other people want to hear? It's sort of that transition. And some of you may have been in more of a phase, right, with the last I'm going to probably say this wrong, but the last eclipse cycle we had, there was emphasis on that Libra house. So it's like, what have you been creating or enjoying? Or, what have you been doing with your kids? That now it's time to do the opposite. And, let the creations be whatever they were. Let that creative need to kind of assert yourself or be who you are. It's like you've gotten to this certain level. Now it's time to kill your darlings if you're a writer, where you go through all the things you've already written in that 5th house and you cut them, right? You cut the things you love the most because it's not about your attachment to them. It's about what does the person reading it need to hear. So you can apply that to your life in whatever way it fits. And if you're like, I'm not an artist or anything, man, then it's just you're going to connect with more people at this time. And if you have like a fear of public speaking or a fear of, going after, getting up in front of a crowd, this would be a time where Geminis in particular are going to try to overcome that fear. Some of you might be doing Toastmasters. Some of you might be assigned to something in your job that you have to do, like talk to groups of people or influence groups of people. For others, though, that 11th house you might not be getting up in front of them. Sometimes it's taking work and making it available to more people, whether that's through your job or through like your own business or something. Let me see, what else can we consider here? Mars rules the 11th house, and Saturn for you rules your 8th house and your 9th house. So 8th house stuff in the 10th house, 9th house stuff in the 10th house. This could be traveling for work. It could be taking things you know about other cultures and using them in your work. It could be, something happens where the person you were working with the closest is now no longer there. They get cut or you're removed from them. Somehow there's a splitting, a severing of that. A severing of 8th house things in the 10th house is like, I don't know, maybe if you had a pension, now you don't have a pension anymore or something. I hope it's not that. I hope it's not that for Geminis. Let me see what else for Geminis. It's just really, one thing I forgot on this, probably the best part is going after your hopes and dreams. This could be because something is happening at your job and you're like, this sucks, I'm out. I want to make my dreams happen even more now. Or something else that is just challenging when it comes to your reputation. And that could be something like, I don't know, someone tries to talk bad about you when it comes to your reputation, or I don't know, some coworkers or people you work with that you just see at work are causing some kind of problems, or causing things to slow down or just being difficult. Either way, there is an emphasis here on going after your hopes and dreams. So you may find that there's this new excitement towards this, or this new motivation to go after your hopes and dreams, but that the process is going to require some kind of sacrifice, hard work, or letting go of something in your 10th house of work so that it can happen. So that's what I have for Geminis. Always remember to take what resonates and leave the rest. These are general. And it always kind of depends on what's happening in your chart. So let's go ahead now with the next sign, which is Cancer. And I think we will do a live Q&A at the end. So those of you who have questions, I mean, you can start dropping them as soon as you want to, and I will find them. Or just think about them. It might be easier for me, actually, if you guys just think about your question and then post it, when we get to that part of the Q&A. Okay, going on now to our beautiful Cancers. For Cancers, we have the eclipse happening in your 10th house of career, and with Saturn, Mars in that 9th house. So this is definitely new beginnings or more action, determination in your 10th house of your job. For Cancers who are trying to get a new job, it's almost like this might be a time some Cancers are either going back to school or finishing up some kind of study or education that is set to prepare you for your next stage you want to go on to when it comes to work. And with Chiron here in the 10th, this can be a time where the thing you have to watch out for with Chiron in the 10th is that you can be motivated by how people see you, right? So with Chiron going through the 10th, it's like it'll bring up this wound of, I don't feel recognized. And the problem with moving forward when that's your motivation is sometimes you end up doing something you think people will recognize you for, but you don't like it and you're not even that good at it necessarily. And then you're not as good at that thing, so then people don't recognize you, right? So it's like the solution to not being recognized is to dive more deeply into what you are so good at and only do that thing. But Chiron in the 10th will not want to do that because they don't want to look like the beginner. They want to look like they're 10 steps beyond where they are. So this is not you personally, right? This is transit. So this isn't how you are, but this is the energy that are going to be coming up at this time from April 8th to the next 6 months of moving forward to overcome the fear of not being capable. Now, for some Cancers, this feels like the promotion you've always wanted to go after that maybe you were too afraid to, you're doing it. Or the business you've always wanted to start, or the job that you've always wanted to actually be in that you didn't maybe have the credentials for, or that you didn't know if you could do it. Maybe now's the time that you prove to yourself that you can do it. Or maybe this is the time where you have a talk with your boss about what you need to do to be, available and ready and qualified for that next step in the career. For Cancers who maybe are like stay-at-home parents, or, you don't have an active career life right now, sometimes the 10th house can be relationship stuff. If you're a parent, it might be the fact that you're a parent and you've always wanted to have kids. Because that 10th house is whatever your role is, right? So what in your role in life where have you held yourself back? It's like now it's go time. And you might make some kind of sacrifice here. This is really strongly, to me, feels like learning something. But it could be, depending on what you do, right? It could be if you are an author and you publish things, well, maybe it's taking more time and making the sacrifice of not putting out as many books at the moment so you can make your magnum opus, your grand work of art. It's like, it's sort of that energy. For others, it's going back to school or finishing school or taking some kind of continued education or getting some kind of degree or certification so that you feel qualified for the next step. For those of you who are wanting to be astrologers, this is highly indicated because the ninth house rules astrology, and it's Mars Saturn could be like going back to the basics of astrology to get a more solid foundation, even though it feels like a sacrifice, because it's like you get to a level, and just apply this to what fits for you, Cancer. You get to a level with astrology where if you didn't learn the basics, you can't go anymore. Like if you just memorize planets and signs and you don't know why they are the way they are, and you'll get to a certain level where you're learning it's you just cannot learn anymore until you go back and learn what a mutable sign is and what water sign means and what the components of it are. So take this metaphor to your life. It's like, have you reached a certain level of studying something where you have to go back to the basics to solidify that learning? Are you, taking on some new courses or taking the time to learn something kind of hard or difficult, or like reading a work from like way a long time ago, many, many years ago, that's like old English and, hard to read? Or something along those lines where you're sort of sacrificing. The feeling we get in that ninth house is like it's like watching a YouTube video on Plato versus trying to read Plato. It's like you're done watching YouTube videos on Plato. Now you want to read Plato. Or something like that. So for Cancers, if I saw this in my chart, I'd be kind of happy, because it feels like whatever next level you've been wanting to achieve, your breakthrough is available to you in the next 6 months. It might require sacrificing a trip, sacrificing some kind of study, sacrificing enjoyment of like learning that you would normally have time for, now you don't, or sacrificing even like adult conversations that you would have been able to have, but now you can't. Or, some legal stuff you have to take care of in order to prepare for that 10th house stuff. But so it's like getting a certain credential or certification so you can legally do the work you want to do, like therapists do or doctors do or something. Either way, it's all about furthering that career and taking it further than you've ever gone. So that's what I have for Cancers. Let me know if it resonates. I always love hearing from you guys. And stick around to the end for our live Q&A for everyone who has jumped on. And I'm going to check on the comments here. Spelled insolence, spelled in silence. Welcome. Spilled, I can't read, sorry. Hello, Prime Creator. Hello, Misbehaving. Josh is here. I think I said hi to Carolyn too, and NC. Mary, hello. Mary says hello from Massachusetts. Hello from Vegas. And Sarah says hello. Yes. Okay, so let's go on now to our Leos. All right, so we have the chart up for our Leos. So for Leo, Sun, Moon, and Rising, this solar eclipse in Aries is happening in your 9th house of travel, of long-distance trips, foreign languages, other countries, the law, publishing, learning great bodies of work or teaching, also higher education and the law. A lot of things go in that 9th house. This is also the house where like astrology and sort of learning spiritual systems or learning, deep technical information, even if it's regular information, learning it's like the graduate school, or, even if you're getting a bachelor's, it's like the 400 level classes of any topic. Okay, so new beginnings, focus and energy going to furthering that 9th house. For some, you're traveling somewhere you've always wanted to go. For others, you are learning something you've always wanted to learn. Those are going to be the two main ones, but just take all of those things I just listed and think of which one applies to your life, right? If you write books, well, this is probably about publishing. If you don't, it's probably not. But Chiron here makes us really consider that this might be a much more spiritual, emotional, psychological, and meaning-oriented eclipse for Leos, because Chiron in the ninth is like when you feel like this is like the natal meaning of it, is that you feel like everyone else, you can help everyone else with their path to God, with what's next on their path, on their quest, on their journey. But you feel like no one can help you with yours. You feel like you almost feel like there's no God in a way, even though you can still have Chiron in the ninth and believe in God. It's just you feel like God isn't there for you. You feel like the path isn't there for you. Everyone else has it, but not you. Sometimes you can be let down a lot by Chiron in the ninth of things you thought you believed that you don't believe anymore. So what this can do for Leos for this time is this feeling of what do I believe in, going on a quest to go beyond the beliefs that stopped you before. Maybe you joined a belief system in the past and you got to a certain level and you were like, I don't know, maybe you stopped yourself in some way. Maybe you weren't ready for the teachings. Maybe you weren't able to handle it. Maybe you thought about doing this course and you were like, no, I'll do it later. And now is the time. It could also be like that with traveling, going somewhere you've never gone, speaking a language you've always wanted to speak, but you didn't let yourself. So it's about and maybe it's also about learning things related to philosophy or spiritual studies or, spiritual science or something that in the past you just couldn't handle believing in. I mean, for spiritual stuff, especially, sometimes we have to raise our consciousness to a certain level before we can understand what the spiritual teachings even mean. And you can read a spiritual text, even something like the Bible, and then you can go back later and read the same thing and have a new understanding of it because you are not just smarter in your mind, but you've had more life experiences. You can integrate the information. So that's kind of the vibe I get off of this, is integrating information maybe you couldn't before, going past some fear that you maybe have of flying as well. Some Leos might be overcoming fear of flying, something like that. Now with Mars, Saturn in that 8th house, this really makes this more of a psychic, like possibly a psychic thing, where it's like some of you might be like having a near-death experience. Some of you might be like learning about the bardo and the phase after you die, the phase in between life and death, or dealing with spirit guides, or learning about like some of the ghosts or negative spirits or something. With Mars, Saturn here in the 8th, these are malefics in the 8th house. So this is going to be psychological fears. This is going to be psychological terror. This is going to be things that are very hard to deal with. And this might be your psychological stuff. It might be someone else's. Some of you might be going back to school to be a therapist or something like that, where it's about helping people overcome their psychological challenges. For others of you, this Mars-Saturn conjunction in this 8th house ruling the eclipse might be more about cutting off of your partner's money in some way. Now, if you are in a relationship and you heavily rely on the other person, this might be a time where there's issues with this. There's issues where they're not available. They're cutting you off. They're not supporting your business anymore. They're making you go get a job. Although it doesn't quite feel like that, but it could be something where like, if your partner had certain money invested, they lose the money they've invested. Or it could be something where their job, whatever they were doing for work, ends or has some kind of challenge related to it. But for other Leos, this could also not be, like, let's say you don't have a partner, and let's say that doesn't apply to you and your partner's job is fine. Well, maybe it's more about investing and really doing some work and making some sacrifice to make some investments or to learn about investing, or where when you start an investment and it's like a little, but over time it's going to grow bigger, and you're making some sacrifices now related to that kind of money in that respect. But with the ninth house ruler in the eighth house, and the eighth house ruler in the 10th house, some of you may actually be, especially if you've been like practicing your intuition or doing psychic work, this might be a time where you end up doing it, like going public with it or something, or learning what you need to know to fill in the gaps between your intuition and the rest. Okay, so what I see for Leos here is more focus on life being meaningful and really wanting to love life, wanting to love spirituality, wanting to surround yourself with books and education and things you want to learn, or YouTube videos, or channels of people who are explaining things you really want to know, and the pleasure that comes from that, or the pleasure that comes from traveling or learning another language, or that quest that you go on in life to be beyond where you are now, going beyond your neighborhood. So some of you, it might be traveling, others it might be learning, lots of energy here on learning, or even teaching. Teaching might be highlighted as well. And if you're teaching, maybe topics of either sexual or psychological challenges or sexual, psychological, or spiritual challenges, or even challenges with finances or accounting may be related to the topics, or they may be topics that are important during this phase of life. But I do think with Jupiter here in the 10th, there's still a lot of this might have to do with the desire to grow in your career and the need to work with other people, or deal with a certain someone who might be trying to stop you, or might be causing you to have to do it slowly in order to work with them, to work with them in some way. So take what resonates, leave the rest. Let me know how it lands for you. I always love hearing from you, and we'll go on now to the next sign, which is going to be our Virgos. All right. Virgos, we have the solar eclipse in Aries happening in your 8th house of sex, death, and other people's money, with Chiron here, though. To me, this feels like Virgos are going to be overcoming financial fear when it comes to debt, interest, investing, things where your money's tied up with other people. Some of you might be paying back loans, or paying back a person you owe money to, or trying to get them to pay you back. Others, though, it may also be overcoming the fear, especially for Virgos who are wanting to learn mediumship or wanting to learn the psychic world or psychic abilities. You might be overcoming the fear of something that held you back in the past in this area. So if you have opened up your psychic gifts to a certain level and then you stopped, or they shut down, or you got distracted, or for whatever reason, maybe you got scared. I'm going to tell my own little story. And one time I was doing a meditation and I saw an eye and I got scared, and I'd it went away. And later I learned that you can go through the eye, but I didn't know that. So Virgos out there might have a situation like this where you learn you can go through the eye, and now you want to go through the eye and see what happens. I guess there's some things on the other side of that eye. But now for some Virgos, if you're like, no, that's not me, we're not doing that, then this could also be, again, either overcoming fears of your finances or something along those lines, and dealing with things like insurance, and dealing with things like interest, and especially like retirement and like Roth IRA, things that accumulate interest, things that are like that. It could also be overcoming the fear of sex. Okay, sex and intimacy. So if you are a Virgo, Sun, Moon, and Rising, and you're like, maybe this next 6 months is like you're going to have an intimate experience that takes you further than you've ever been before. And It almost feels like if that's the case, though, this will not be in a relationship. It's almost like this will just be an experience that opened you up, and then and then it's the experience is over. Both people move along. Now, this makes me think also about the transformation is part of that eighth house. And for those of you who are like, but what about death? Is someone gonna die? I never predict death on general readings because it's not going to be true for everyone. Death does go in this house. But I mean, in order to see whether that's really happening for you, we'd have to look at a bunch of things, and I don't even do that. So don't come to me for that, because I don't want to tell you that someone's going to die, and then I don't want to do that. I don't want to know in my own chart when someone's going to die. But there's other kinds of death that go in this house, where you have experiences in life that are before and after. And certain key people in your life passing away can sometimes be those experiences, right? Where it's like parents, before one of your parents died. Everyone has that, where it's like before and after. Everyone who lives long enough. But there can be other before and afters that get created during this time. That's what I'm trying to get to, is that experience of, having the thing that transformed you. It can be anything. It doesn't have to be someone dying. It could be you went to an event that you had a transformation, and now it's before and after. Or something bad happened, right? Someone left you. You had a relationship and it's before and after. Those big key times in life, I think Virgos will have a big key before and after time in life during this 6 months. That with all this stuff in the 8th house and Chiron here, there's a way to heal through it though. And some of it might have to do with losing someone or an ending of a relationship. Gosh, I can't get away from this being challenging. With Saturn ruling your 5th and 6th house and Mars hitting it, for some Virgos, there might be an end of a job during this cycle. It could also be the end of a certain type of work, the end of a certain type of pleasure, 5th house, the end of a certain type of, now I'm thinking of the end of a certain type of habit and pleasure. That makes me feel like some of you could clean up your diet or have some kind of big moment where you're like, okay, I'm not going to treat my body this way anymore, right? For something challenging, that is like a change that you have to make, where you have to cut off your like too much sugar or something. But if that's the case, it's almost like you do it through journaling or some other like transformational therapeutic method, if that makes sense. Saturn and Mars in the 7th for Virgos, I don't love this for you because it feels like if you're getting into a relationship at this time, it's going to have a lot of hard things with it. It feels like some of you could be getting out of a relationship that's bad, Saturn in the 7th. It does that. I don't like this. I don't like it. I'm not going to try to put a positive spin on it. You might have people who you thought were your friends who you have to stop being friends with. You might have someone who was a really long-term friend no longer be in your life for some way. So it does feel like during this cycle, Virgos might experience some kind of loss of something, but that it feels like there's still so much healing available during this time that it might be the kind of thing that you look back and say, yeah, that was when I lost that thing, but then it was the best thing that ever happened to me, blah, 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 blah. Kind of like that. Okay, so I'm not trying to sugarcoat it. I don't like all of this stuff, but there is possibility of growth and transformation in this next 6 months that might be beyond anything you've ever experienced before. So, you're capable, and how capable you are, you might not even know until this eclipse cycle is over. So also for a lot of Virgos, really a lot of this might be more about finances, having that lunar eclipse in Libra in the second house, releasing a certain way of making money and increasing that eighth house way. So one of the obvious things here to me would be like, you don't just trade time for dollars anymore. Some Virgos might be investing or finding other ways to get your money to make you money. And so it could be that kind of energy where it's, instead of just me making my own money, now there's a blending. Maybe now there's employees. Maybe now there's investments. And maybe now there's some kind of partnership where you're merging your finances. That could be another thing that's happening. Although I still don't like Saturn here. I feel like Saturn is going to make this harder, and there might be some kind of sacrifice you're making in that seventh house of relationships so that you can move forward in the eighth house. It does feel like for Virgos during this cycle, there may be a need to get rid of somebody who is not good for you. Or there may be some kind of challenging loss to deal with, one or the other. So I found as much good as I could on this one, Virgos, but you can also try watching the lunar eclipse in Libra, as I think there was a little more positive going on with that one. All right. Okay, so we are going to the next one, which is going to be Libras. All right. For our Libras, what do we got? We got this solar eclipse in the seventh house of relationships. So it's going to be all about other people during this 6 months. This could be a new relationship, or it could be going further in an existing relationship, because we have that Sun conjunct Chiron. So what about your current, if you're in a relationship, Libras, what about that current relationship is making you feel, or has made you feel, like your needs are not getting met? This might be a new cycle for Libras of taking the lead in your relationship and being like, okay, I want this in my relationship, this is how I'm going to get it. Instead of, doing the thing that I know a lot of Libras really struggle with, which is like, I give and give and give, and then I never get back. So it might be about being more assertive, or more direct, or more confrontational in your relationship to lead it down the direction you want it to go. Now, for some of you, is it possible a relationship ends? It's possible. It's possible a new relationship starts. But if I were to kind of zoom out and try to make this apply to everyone, I would say it's about, how do you get what you want with other people? How do you exert your will when it comes to other people? And this might be a part of the cycle where it's like you're really focusing on your ability to influence. Now that might be in your relationship, but it might be as a coach. It might be as a coach you're getting some training, or even if you're a lawyer, you're learning how to do a certain style of interviewing with people so they feel more like you're on their side, right? This might have more to do with your ability to influence other people and focusing on taking that area of life further than it's ever been, or overcoming fears that I'm not capable, fears that I don't know what to do, so how can I tell someone else what to do? And really maybe overcoming that by having some pride in yourself for what you've accomplished. Now, for Libras, with Mars conjunct Saturn in the sixth house, Saturn in the sixth house tends to be a time where we're working hard, and sometimes we have to work harder and we're not getting as much. It's almost like your commute gets longer, right? Or something along those lines, where you do more work and more sacrifice, but you don't always get like a promotion, or you don't always get the money from the work. Sometimes when Saturn's in the sixth, things it's like you're pushing. It's like you planted a seed 14 or 15 years ago, and that seed isn't quite above the ground, but you have to take care of it more now because it's about to sprout. That's not the perfect metaphor, but the idea here is like whatever you're working on, nurturing in your long-term goals and your long-term growth, it requires more of you, but you don't necessarily get more back at this moment of time. And I don't love the 7th ruler and the 6th here with Saturn. I don't love that for you Libras. This could be cutting off somehow a relationship with a family member, especially a parent. Let me think of what else. It could also be, it could be a natural time of life where you're ending a certain, like you're moving out of your parents' house. Okay, I would feel like this would be good for that, because it shows that ending of some kind of connection with a parent in that 6th house of loss, and the new beginning in the 7th house of other people, people who you're on the same level with. Mars in the 6th can be a time where you're really busy as well. So you're really busy, you have to deal with a lot of stuff, do a lot of work, a lot's on your plate, and it's all about other people. It does feel like, I can't get away from that with this chart. It's all about other people for the next 6 months. And that's fine, but it might also be for some of you Libras where your partner has a big thing they're doing and you're just like kind of taking the back seat for the next 6 months. Or at some point in the next 6 months, there's a change in your role or in their work or something where that requires, it's almost like you're going to spend your time making their lunches or helping them get prepped for what they're doing. That's another way this could show up, is that you're being the supportive cast in a partner's life during this time and showing up for them. So Libras, let me know how that resonates. And we'll go on to our next sign, which is Scorpios. All right, Scorpios have the solar eclipse in the 6th house. So a new job, a new type of work, new types of skills, the highest possibility for 6th house stuff is going to be getting good at something, right? Building the skills to get good at something, being an apprentice, being in a stage where you're cutting your teeth, you're doing the thing and you're doing the thing and you're just, it's the routine of doing the thing and doing the thing. Other 6th house stuff might be new diet, new health plan, new exercise routine, waking up at a new time, but really focus on your routine. This much focus on your routine makes me feel like it could be to solve a problem, right? It could be that, or you're just really motivated, Scorpios, to get your health in order during this time. And with Chiron here in the 6th, though, some of this might be on the emotional side of people with Chiron in the 6th sometimes feel like they always get stuck at the bottom and they never move up. And it's painful because it's like, sometimes I think maybe they just do a good job of that kind of work, and because that happens when you do a good job at like administrative work, you don't get promoted because then they can't find someone who can replace you. So there could be some dealing with a feeling of not being satisfied with your level in life. Now, this might not be all Scorpios. But if you're a Scorpio who has feelings like I do get stuck at the bottom and I am tired of it, this might be a time where you're dealing with that more, or you are wanting to make some changes to overcome that, to have your skills be more solid and really develop more skill sets. Some of you might just be a natural next step is like, okay, I'm this good at what I do now. I want to be that much better. Let me go learn something hands-on that I get to do over and over and over again. So also I would say you're probably going to be doing a lot of work at this time, and it might be a time of life where you're sacrificing pleasure, right? You're not dating as much, you're not going out as much, you're not going to as much movies, whatever you do for fun on a regular basis. Maybe you're cutting some of that out so you can spend more time doing the thing you are willing to sacrifice for, that requires some courage in that sixth house. Now, this can show up differently for different people. Some people, maybe you have some pets, you get some pets and they're a lot of work and you've always wanted a pet, you never let yourself have them, or you've always wanted another, pet iguana or something. And that pet iguana takes all your damn time, or, you got a pet monkey or something that's like needs constant attention. I don't think you guys really are getting pet monkeys. I'm just coming up with examples. But the point is there's more focus on schedule, which means you're probably filling it with something new, something that requires a lot of work, and something that requires you to maybe make some sacrifices related to things you would normally be doing for enjoyment, so that you can get certain things done, get certain things accomplished. For some of you, it might just be a busy workload, but it feels more like it's about getting to a next level with your routine, your skills, or other sixth house stuff. Maybe your employees, you have to lead them more or train more of them during this time. Something like that, where you're like putting all your energy into your skills, into chores, into taking care of other people, or taking care of your diet or your health, so that you can just get through this time or get to a certain level with it. And then it maybe won't require as much energy anymore. Keep in mind, this change may not happen yet. It might happen later on, sometime in the next 6 months. But let's look more at Saturn and Mars. For you, Mars rules your sixth house. Saturn rules your third house. I don't love that in the fifth house. Let me think. Gosh. Yeah, some of you might have issues with your car or your transportation. You might sell a car. You might have a car and it's like the life of your car ends somehow, right? How? Well, maybe you sell it. Maybe it gets totaled. Maybe something else happens. But the focus here for Scorpios, if your car has issues or something, the focus isn't, oh, let's go get a new car. Yay. It doesn't feel like that on this one. It's the focus is on the loss of the car, or the ending, or the getting rid of it, or the selling it. So it might be you're selling a car. It might be for one reason or another, you find out there's something wrong with the car and then you want to get rid of it or something. And maybe that affects your day-to-day routine. Who knows? Maybe at some point in the next 6 months, a car breaks down. But overall, as far as the more positive stuff here, there's chances here to go through a new level of work or fill your plate up with more. And so that's the part that feels good. Although it does feel like it's like a push, a time where you're pushing and you're just like pouring yourself into what you're working on. Okay, so that's what I have for Scorpios, and we'll go on to our next sign, which is Sagittarius. All right, so Sagittarius we have the solar eclipse in Aries happening in your fifth house of fun. Solar eclipse in the fun house. I love it. It means for the next 6 months, you may have a change where your focus becomes more on something fifth house related. So this could be having a kid. It could be doing something like a new hobby, doing a hobby more, having a creative passion, doing something where you are expressing yourself more. You, especially with Mercury retrograde here, if it feels like you might be, like if you used to sing, you might be singing again, or you might be going back and reassessing how you run your business and want to build it in a way, or, take a step back enough to figure out how to go past where you've always been. Like maybe your business only stayed at a certain level, and now you're like, let's take that further than it's been. For some of you, it's just having a kid, and that's it, and that all this, Chiron in the fifth, overcoming the fear that you won't be a good parent, overcoming the fear that if you have a kid, it won't work, or they'll hate you, or whatever your fear is, that you'll be like your parents or something. Whatever fear, any kind of fear you could have around having a kid. like my body can't do it or whatever it is, or the guy's going to leave, or, I don't have this or whatever. Or I'll hate it and then I'll resent it, whatever. For those of you who are like, nope, that's not on the radar. This can be some kind of creative passion, your own business. For a few of you out there, it might be about gambling, because gambling goes in that 5th house, but that wouldn't be my first thing I would think of. This is more like overcoming your fear, where you've held yourself back from enjoying life. And Mars, Saturn in that 4th house makes it interesting, because it could be, in some cases, for some Sagittarius, is that separating from a parent gives you a new lease on life in some way. Now, I hope that's not most of you, but a few of you out there may find that you have to cut ties or set boundaries with a parent, or you're having a lot of fights with a parent or having struggles with a parent. And that somehow is connected here to you feeling like you can't enjoy your life. Almost like you have your own business and they're telling you need a job, or something like that. We're dealing with judgments or restrictions from a family member, a parent usually. Or it could be a husband or wife, but not usually. Now, the other way this could work is because Mars is in your 4th house of home and Saturn is here. Saturn rules your 2nd house of money. Some of you might be moving to a new place and you just like it more. Or you're moving to a new place so you can do the things you enjoy because you can't do them where you live now. So this would almost be like if you have roommates, you move to a new place where you can walk around naked, or you can play your guitar and sing anytime you want to, or something else that you enjoy that you just can't do currently, or something where or like, let's say you're like me, you do YouTube videos and you move to a place where you have a really nice set, right? So you can do your creative passion in your home from your home, and it's more focused on that. Some of you might not be moving. You might already just have the same house, same place to live, but you're putting a studio in your house, or you're somehow combining the topic of fun and home. So it's like your creativity is able to happen more at home. You're able to build your business or build your creativity or do things that sort of, it's like if you're a singer, you're writing your album at home and you have a space for it now. Or you've just said yes to the feeling, that nagging feeling that has said, buy those clothes you want to buy. Go to those places you want to go. Watch those movies you want to watch. Live your life how you want to. And maybe you have been holding yourself back, but maybe life situations and conditions have not quite allowed you to be that freedom-loving Sagittarius that you always want to be. So I love this eclipse for you, because it's like you could either be inspired, you could also be dating someone, or be, going further. If you're a single Sagittarius, going further when it comes to dating than you've gone. And it really feels more like dating, less like relationship. It feels like a phase where it's more about dating and discovering your values, rediscovering your values, or discovering your values, or figuring out what you like and don't like about the people you're dating, to like gather all this data to end up figuring out who you want to be with. And for some of you, it's because of some kind of loneliness or challenge in your 4th house. It's almost like, and that's going to be home or emotional foundation. So it's almost like I am frustrated emotionally, and if I had more fun, I might not be so frustrated. So let's go have more fun. Now that could show up differently for different people, but this is a time where I could see Sagittarius as really refinding your voice again, refinding your passion again, connecting more deeply, or having more fun, or, living a little, risking more, gambling a little more, taking more chances. And maybe it's because of some kind of loss or sad feeling in your emotional body that you're like, all right, that sucks. Let's go do something good. There does feel like there's some kind of challenge or slowness, like you want to get a house and you have to wait, or, the payment you're making on your down payment is like not going through fast enough, or you're trying to save the money to put down on a house and it's slow or something. And then you either go have fun to blow off some steam and do things you enjoy, or maybe start doing more or going further in your business if you have one, so that you can come up with the money that you need to have that feeling of financial security, or to have a savings or something that makes you feel more secure. So I do feel like this is positive for Sagittariuses. I like that it's in the fun house. I think there's a lot of potential to, like, you could become a totally new person during this next 6 months if you choose to. And it's like the energy kind of supports for Sagittarius of like, live a little, Sag. That's kind of what I feel. So going on now to our next sign, which is going to be Capricorns. We are going to do a live Q&A at the end, so stick around for that if you'd like. And here we go. Capricorns, the solar eclipse in Aries happens in your 4th house of home and emotional foundations. So the first thing that can happen here is you could find that you are going to have a new house. You want to have a new house, or you want to focus on making your house a home in some way. But with Chiron here, it feels like there might be more of an emotional thing happening, where it's like you're creating the home you never had. Now that might be in your physical home, but it might also be in your own skin. People with Chiron in the 4th in their natal charts usually feel like the scapegoat of the family. It's like their family doesn't even really know them. You know, it's like they're different, and they don't get that sort of feeling of belonging from their family because they're like the different one in some way. So having the eclipse be conjunct Chiron in the 4th house, it's about who knows you and where do you belong? You know, it's that sense of belonging. It's that sense of creating belonging somewhere, anywhere, wherever you are in the world, that you've never felt. A new level of belonging. That is what I feel for Capricorns for this. And you know, then if we consider Mars, Saturn in that 3rd house, now some of you might just have siblings messing things up at this time. And some of you might have your sibling and your parent getting together and trying to do some shit they shouldn't be doing, or getting together and just causing problems. That can be part of it. But with Saturn in the 3rd house, usually there is a feeling of, I'm not really going to say anything right now. And Mars makes you want to say something, but Saturn makes you know you shouldn't. People with Saturn in the 3rd, sometimes they will just not say anything unless they think it's important. And with Mars here, it stimulates that. So for some reasons, for Capricorns, this might be a time where you realize you don't need to get involved and be talking about stuff. There might be situations, one main situation or more than one situation, where you know that speaking up is not going to be the right way to deal with it. Speaking up would only cause problems. Therefore, maybe you have to keep a secret or something. But also, Mars Saturn here could also be related to your car trouble. And I mean, I don't know what kind or anything, but let me see what else I can get here. I don't know, Capricorns. It just feels like you're creating a place where you belong. And there's still a feeling of like, I'm still not going to say anything though. And that's the part I'm not fully, I don't get this. I don't get this. Let me look at what the rulers are. Mars rules the 4th house. Saturn rules the 1st and 2nd. Yeah, you could be like literally investing money into your car or investing money into reading a lot of books. This would be like a lot of little books you're buying, like me, and you just go on a shopping spree on Amazon and buy a bunch of Kindle books or something. But it could just be you're really, really motivated to learn, but you have to take it slowly, or the stuff you want to learn is really thick and you can't learn it quickly. You have to take the time to learn it. That can be another part of this. Yeah, let me think here. Yeah, it's just like this whole cycle, I would say if I had to put one thing on it, it's like, where do you belong, Capricorn? Where do you feel, what feels like home? And what do you have to change or do or accomplish or achieve to have your house feel like a home or feel at home in your own skin? Because it feels like there's something here that's like nagging or making it harder or making it be like a sacrifice to achieve this. Are you, I don't know, it's almost like someone comes and lives with you and makes it sweeter and now it feels like a home. Or some of you, maybe it's decorating your home like you've always wanted to, but it feels like there's more emotions here where it's about decorating it the way your mom said you couldn't when you were a teenager. You know, something like this, where it's like overcoming a past wound through making your home be where you belong and like a safe place and all of that. So that's what I have for Capricorns. Let me know if this one makes sense to you guys. I always love hearing from you. And let's go on to our next sign here, which is going to be Aquariuses. For Aquarius, we've got the solar eclipse in Aries happening in your third house of communication. So with Chiron here, conjunct the eclipse, let me actually try to change this back to the right date and just get it on your sign. There we go. All right. So what was I even saying? Solar eclipse in Aries for Aquariuses in your third house of communication. Some of you, it could literally be about your car and you're focusing on getting a new car and you're making payments on it or something. But for most of you, this is going to be a new level of being heard and speaking clearly and learning how to speak in a way that people listen and learning how to speak with authority. Or learning how to, for some, because I think about some of the Aquariuses I know don't need help with that. Some of the Aquariuses I've met actually need to do the opposite, where you need to learn how to speak in a way other people can understand. So some of you might be figuring out how to do that, where like when you know something at a high level, it's really easy to talk over people's heads. So perhaps some of you Aquariuses are during this cycle learning how to talk to someone on the level that they are, or writing a book, or working on to communicate in a different way. It's not like you don't know how to communicate, but it's like learning how to communicate this way. Like if you want to write a best-selling book nowadays, it has to be at a certain level, right? You have to learn how to write at like a second grade reading level if you want like a bestseller, because the higher reading level, the less people can understand it, right? So it could be that kind of thing, where fill this in with what makes sense in your field or what you're working on. This could be marketing in your business and learning how to speak in a certain way that catches people's attention. But with Chiron here, Chiron in the third house, it's like the wound of not being understood. And so it's overcoming that, whatever you have within yourself that says, I'm not even going to say anything because people aren't going to hear me anyway. That's the Chiron wound that we're going through here. That's the thing we're overcoming for Aquariuses in this 6 months, is letting it be okay if someone doesn't understand you, learning how to deal with that and not personalize it, and learning how to be understood, but not from a space of, I need you to understand me so I'm okay, but learning how to come across in a way that other people get it, right? Learning how to do that. It might also be about being heard and using your voice. Those are all really, really strong themes. Using your voice, it doesn't have to be like in an Aries way, like to tell someone you hate them or you want to kill them or do Aries things. It just means that you might need to have some courage in the way that you need to use your voice in the upcoming 6-month cycle. So how are you being heard? Are you being understood? Are you making new connections with people who really get you now and you didn't have that before? let's see what Mars rules. Mars rules the third house, Saturn rules the 12th house, and you. So again, it's kind of like, it's like everything comes back to communication, and communication as something that you are capable of, and having confidence in your income level, having confidence and maybe investing into your own self, having the confidence to trust what you're saying. Again, honestly, I don't usually find that Aquariuses need all of this, but maybe you're doing something that is like you're going into a new skill or a new field or something where you're new at it and you have to learn how to be confident at this new skill that you haven't done before, or you're gathering all this information to become more confident in one particular thing. So it might be like, let me think of something I know something about. Let's say you're a hairstylist. And so you're learning about color theory, and you're learning about all the different ways you can cut. And you're also learning about, I don't know, you're going to take all this little information, the history of cutting hair, and you're going to learn about like what people do wrong when they cut their hair themselves. And you're going to learn about all these different things so you can be like the expert hairstylist. Now, I don't think you guys are really being hairstylists, but it's like when you learn about a thing and you need to learn about all the different layers of the thing from all the different angles. That's that third house energy, is like learning all the different angles, learning what this person said and this person said. But when you put all that together, that third house ruler in the second, it becomes an asset and you become an authority of that thing just by learning everything there is to learn about that one little thing. And you can do that with anything. So maybe during this cycle, this is what Aquariuses are doing, is they're taking a topic of choice, or they're taking something they work with, and they're learning all the things around it, and all, like, to fill in all the gaps in their knowledge so that you just have a unshakable body of work and confidence around your topic. That could be also how this is going. For some Aquariuses, having an eclipse in the third house might have to do something with a sibling. Especially if, with Chiron here, you've had a sibling relationship that was blocked, or that it didn't flow well. This could be a time where you maybe rekindle a relationship with a sibling, or, try to heal some of the pain from that. Or if you had a loss of a sibling or something, that's not going to be everyone. This might be a time where you kind of have some grieving, or overcome what that wound of that loss stopped you from in the past. And there's, a potential here to really heal that. Let me think of what else. Yeah, it's like what you know becomes a possession. Communicating what you know becomes a possession. So that can be like, or an asset. So that can also be like you're writing everything you know about a certain thing into a book, and that book becomes something you own, right? So it's like gathering, because that ninth house ruler is Venus. So communicating what you know, all this higher knowledge, and either putting it into words that are easy for everyday people to understand, and or putting it into a book, or something solid, something tangible, something that where it's contained, putting it in some kind of container to sell or to keep. That really feels like the biggest thing that I see for Aquariuses. So always, you guys, let me know how it lands. I always love hearing from you. And we're going to do a Q&A after. So those of you who want to stick around for that can. For those of you who are going to stick around for the Q&A, now would be a good time to put your questions in the chat box. So we're going to go now to our next sign, which is going to be Pisces. For Pisces, Sun, Moon, and Rising, the solar eclipse in Aries is a money transit for you. It's all about overcoming where you've held yourself back in the past financially. Now that can be with your income, or it can be with your spending. And this really has to do with your identity, because we have this second house ruler here in the first house, which means During this 6 months, there might be some kind of money-oriented event that defines you in some way, or you. Now, I would say watch out if this is a loss. It could be not, because it's your 12th house and your 11th house ruler. So it could be a loss, or it could be a hope and dream coming true, where you're stepping up to an authority and you're now the authority in the thing that you're doing. And now it's like you have the whatever you did, whatever you needed to do, whatever skills or value you needed to add to the world, to yourself, has been accomplished. And now you can say, I am the authority in this. I have earned this. I have achieved this. Okay. Mars conjunct Saturn in the first might be during this 6 months. You're trying to achieve it. You're trying to achieve a new level of finances, a new level of income, a new level of, it might not just be like, I want to make 6 figures. It could be for Pisces that it's about doing something you love, or doing something you find meaningful, or, doing work that you enjoy, that works with other people, doing work that you feel like you're good at, right? So it's a new cycle financially in some way. What have you been wanting financially, Pisces, that you felt like maybe you weren't good enough to have before now? Or maybe you felt like you weren't sure if you were good enough. That's kind of the feeling I get with Chiron in the second. Now, sometimes people with Chiron in the second will do things like make sure they dress a certain way or have a certain kind of shoes. Like they'll care more if they don't have as much money as other people. And it's like, I'll ask them, do you want that much money? And sometimes they don't even want the money. They don't want people to think of them as a person who doesn't have the money. Chiron in the second can also be the wound of feeling like you don't have the security that you need, and the sensitivity of like, if you have, I always joke with people with moon here, and moon and Chiron are similar, that like you guys need like 50K in the bank to feel okay. And it's kind of true, because people with Chiron or the moon in the second house will worry more if they don't have security. So this might be a cycle where you are healing that feeling of financial insecurity. Now that could be because you're making more money. It could be because you're saving more. Could be because you're investing in some things that you know you could sell if you had them. It could be that you're investing in your own, I don't know, it's almost like you're investing in needing less. I don't know how you would do that. Investing in things that cause you to not need to buy as many things down the road. Overall, though, it's all about, what am I worth? And how can I increase my worth? Or how can I see my value? Pisces are in a 6-month cycle of seeing their value at a new level, letting go of the need to rely on others financially, that lunar eclipse in Libra, and having that level of independence of, I can do it. I can make money. And with Mars, though, conjunct Saturn, it's like, I can make money even though it's slowly and one step at a time. I can make money even though it's just a little bit more every month. It feels like this will be a slow trip up the mountain, but you're still going to be higher on the mountain than you were before this started, right? So it's like a new beginning, a new focus, a new time where you're shining the light on your own financial security, how you take care of yourself. And with Saturn, the 11th house ruler in the first, it's like this all goes back to making sacrifices for your big hope and dream, that it might still take another year or so after this, because Saturn is still in that first house before it begins to feel like you're at the point in the mountain you wanted to be at. But overall, it's all about, overcoming the fear of not being worth it. Almost like by solidifying the identity of, yes, I am the kind of person who does this. And the way that you do this, Pisces, is through doing that thing so much that maybe you get some kind of reputation for being good at what you do, or maybe you start getting more and more like positive reinforcement of whatever reputation you're trying to build for yourself, whatever new version of yourself you're trying to become. And that becomes more and more solid as you get more and more skills. So that is what I have for Pisces. All right. So you guys can ask questions now. We're going to go to the Q&A. If you are just jumping on, we just did the eclipse forecast for the solar eclipse in Aries for all 12 signs of the zodiac, and you can watch your sun, moon, and rising. But now we're going to go to the fun part. Well, it's all the fun part, but we're going to go to some questions. So if you have a question, you can drop it here in the chat box, and I will answer it. So Josh is asking, what is an area of a person's chart that you would say is not focused on enough? Something that would set you apart from other astrologers? What do I think is not focused on enough? Let me think about that for a second. The first thing that comes to mind is the 9th house for meaning and fulfillment. I think this is, astrologers know this, but I think people who are trying to find their purpose will over focus on the North Node, and they won't put any focus on the Midheaven or the 9th house. And I would say your North Node is going to tell you what you can do to feel happier, and it's going to be stuff you don't want to do because it's not comfortable. So the North Node sort of shows us, when we're looking at it from a modern perspective, how we can, like be better and be happier. But I think the 9th house is what I'm going to say is like the most underrated, because it's like, what gives you meaning? What do you find meaningful? Look at your 9th house. Look at your 9th house ruler. And if life doesn't mean anything, why are we even here? So, of course, I have 5 planets in Sagittarius. So I think the meaning of life is the thing that we don't focus on enough. Okay, so my feed is blah, 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 blah. Okay, what's your opinion on listening for our progressed rising sign? I'm a no on that. I'm definitely a no on that. I think that the sun, moon, and rising is plenty. And I don't think we should listen to our progressed rising sign, because for those who don't know what a progressed rising sign is, the progressed chart it's a chart that we take when we're a baby. When we're 1 day old, 1 day becomes 1 year. So when you're a baby and you're 1 day old, that's the first year of your progressed chart. And when you're a baby and you're like 2 months old, that's when you're 60 years old. So what happens in the progress chart is, instead of the moon going through a sign in 2.5 days, it takes 2.5 years. But all of the other planets and points in the chart also progress. So whatever rising sign you have, you're definitely going to have your chart by the time you're 30 or 45, depending on, actually depends on what your degree of your rising is. But the rising signs, every sign is 30 degrees, right? So by the time you're 30, you're going to be in the next rising sign. By the time you're 60, it'll be the rising sign after that. So, I don't talk a lot about progressions on my channel because it's kind of a complex thing that it's more likely for new people to misunderstand, right? So people are going to be like, oh, my chart in my progress chart is now Leo rising. So does that mean I'm a Leo rising? No, it does not. Your natal chart is always your natal chart. No progression, no transit, no any other chart will ever outdo your natal chart. But when your chart progresses into that sign, you do get a little bit more like that sign. Okay, so it's kind of good to know, like, if you don't like your sun, your moon, or your rising. I mean, moon maybe not, but like if you know your sun or your moon, your sun or like your Mars, let's say, has challenges, well, maybe it will progress into the next sign at a certain time. But my opinion on listening for our own chart on astrology videos is, you definitely want to stick with your sun, moon, and rising, because those are validated by astrology. The rest are not. As far as there is something called the solar, I don't know what it's called exactly, but these are things astrologers have validated, is that when you take the sun sign and you put it on the rising, and you think of all the planets as in relationship to that, as if that was the rising sign. This is a branch. These are branches of astrology. The Venus, a lot of tarot readers say, listen for your sun, moon, rising, and Venus. People are just adding shit at this point. So it's not Venus, it's not progressed, it's just sun, moon, and rising. That's my opinion on this. Okay, so for NC, I'm not going to answer anything that's like a personal question like that. So just know that. And okay, so if we have any more questions, now is the time to drop them. You can ask me about general questions about upcoming energies, general questions about astrology, beliefs, fate, free will, any kind of big topics like that, or purpose, astrology and purpose, or like where in the chart to find a certain thing you're looking to find, or what a certain combination of planets means. We can talk about all that stuff. I also did a live Q&A on the lunar eclipse and Libra video, and I did go back and look at I did go back and put timestamps on the Q&A. So if you want to go watch that, you'll be able to choose the timestamps based on which question you want to listen to the answer of. Okay, so Josh is saying, can you really tell when someone's going to die? I have not studied this enough to say confidently yes. Okay, I've not studied it enough. Astrologers really can. They really can. And I can really see when someone passes away in my chart, I can go back and be like, okay, that makes sense. And there are times where I'm trying to think of, I don't think I've ever personally predicted death in a reading, whether it be, sometimes I'll say, oh, what happened at this time where there was probably a loss, and they'll tell me someone died. But I'm not quite at that level where I can predict external events that accurately. And I don't know if I want to, because I don't want to see when I die. I don't want to know. I don't want to see when everyone I know is going to die. I don't want to. I already sometimes think I can, and it's like, fuck. I don't like it. I mean, would you want to? Would you want to look at your chart and be like, my mom's going to die here, my sister's going to die here, da 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 da. You know what I mean? All right. NC says, does eclipse bring death? I know 2 people that passed this week. The short answer is no. I don't like to make those general sweeping, scary statements, because there are many eclipses that don't bring death. And this is not my strong suit, is using astrology to predict death. But some very good astrologers can predict when people are going to die. Eclipses, just like in your chart, if someone has a chart and they're like, oh, the eclipse is in the 8th house, is someone gonna die? Maybe, but maybe not. And if you think of your life during every 6-month cycle, isn't there someone who dies, right? Doesn't somebody or your cousin's friend, or like, don't you know someone who dies all the time? Like, people die all the time. So I don't want to get super into that. Okay, wait, Josh says, I've got Pisces all over my chart, so I'd be curious. What do you mean? You'd be curious if you're going to die because you want to know, or how does the Pisces connect? I'm curious. And like for those of you who really know enough about astrology, if you're like, I want to know when someone's going to die. You want to track things like your eighth house ruling planet. And you kind of want to, you can study the astrology of people's death and see what causes that. It's not something I want to teach or study because, like I said, I don't want to know. So, what you need to know about that, as far as working with me goes, is if you're looking for an astrologer who is going to warn you in 2 months your mom's going to die, I would rather not do that. And if you book with me, you're like, I really want to know, you have to say that. You have to say, I really, really want to know if you see something that means someone will die. Because you can only study astrology so long before you start to see this stuff. And you can't unsee it. Carolyn says, talk about a hard deadline. Oh, yeah. Okay. So Josh says, the Pisces connects because I like everything mysterious, death, ghosts, NDEs. See, I can handle ghosts. I can handle NDEs. I can handle the spiritual, crazy ass experiences people tell me about that they're like, you're not going to believe this, but I can handle all that stuff. But like actually knowing and being able to help a client see when someone's going to die, I don't want to do that. Not at this point. Okay, so yeah, Josh is talking about free will. So you could walk in front of a car on a day that may not be my day. Okay, but it's interesting. Isn't that an interesting concept? A lot of people, when they are not astrologers, believe in free will. And then a lot of people, the more they study astrology, the more they believe in fate, because we see these fated events happen at fated times. And this is where the belief that astrology is also like a time clock. The planets are like a time clock. Some people believe they cause the events, but other people believe that they are just indicating it's time for someone to die. Saturn and Mars getting together, or, the eighth house ruler and the 12th hitting something else. Or, there's a lot of different, usually we see a combination of things. And this is one of the reasons why it's kind of hard to teach these kind of things to non-astrologers, because you could see one little planet doing one little thing that maybe does happen when people die, but then you could see a bunch of other planets doing good stuff. So it's like, in the chart, there's this rule of 3 actually, that to make a prediction or to say something about someone's natal chart, you actually don't say anything if you see that thing once. You don't say anything if you see it twice. But if you see it 3 times and there's not a bunch of stuff contradicting it, you can say that more confidently as an astrologer. And this is why this stuff is hard to teach. Because you have to kind of read the whole chart for every single thing you want to look at. But I will say that, like, if you're looking for when people die, we're going to think about Pluto. Okay, Pluto hitting the sun or the moon or the rising, it's almost always someone in your life passes away. Now, it might be your grandma. It might be, depending on what phase of life you're in, almost always Pluto's going to bring the death of someone. You can look at the 8th house ruler. The 8th house ruler also, so like for example, if I see Pluto making a contact with something and the 8th house ruler making a contact with something else and they're squaring, and maybe one of the things that it's making a contact with is that planet that rules that year or the planet that rules the 12th house. Well, then, we kind of build these things together to understand the whole story. Carolyn's saying, I always see astrology as an energetic weather report. It's important not to take everything as written in stone. Yeah, definitely. The trajectory of energetic conditions. Right. And it's like we want to kind of, I always want to kind of work with it. But another way to really understand astrology is to track your own transits, like see what's happening in your chart when certain things happen. Because there are some things that we're going to see that happen for everyone at the same time, like a Pluto transit or like a Saturn transit, like a Saturn return. Everyone's Saturn return is going to suck a little bit. But you can also see, like, by tracking even the smallest things, that a certain planet represents like a certain person. Like your manager at work, it might not be obvious in your chart who your manager at work is based on the planet, but if you have a really important conversation with that manager one day, then you can see in the chart, oh, what was being aspected there, and if it's obvious. And we can keep doing this. And this is where we really understand. Like, we understand our Saturn by going back and seeing what happened at all of our Saturn transits. And even though there are these general lessons that everyone gets from Saturn, like responsibility and hard work and consequences, some people's Saturn returns are good. Even though I just said they always suck. Some people's, especially their second Saturn return, are really good because they took that first Saturn return and they lived their life differently, or they lived the rest of their life to have the consequences they wanted. And then when their Saturn return happened, they got all the consequences they were working for. So I'm kind of going off on a tangent, but yeah, I think there's like some beautiful, delicate balance here between trusting that, the universe and the astrology is going to sort of deliver us the lessons that we need when we need them. And trusting that if it's time for something, it's time for something in our lives. Versus also doing what we can to use our free will to create the life we want. I think we have this beautiful balance. And this is why I think some of the law of attraction stuff, it doesn't quite land all the way, because I think we all innately know that we can't change everything. We can't control everything. So I was thinking about this yesterday, actually. I was thinking about how a lot of spiritual teachers will say, you chose this, you chose to come here, you chose your parents, you chose all of it. And I think of it more like let's say you choose to play baseball. If you choose to play baseball, then you have to follow the rules of baseball, right? 3 strikes and you're out. But you don't necessarily control the rules. You don't get to go say, like, I'm playing baseball and today we're going to do 2 strikes and you're out. And this is the kind of attitude I think some teachers of manifestation have, where it's like they sort of promote this influence on our environment that it's either impossible or just not part of the game. It's not part of the game. I don't think we're here to change the rules of the game. I think we're here to exert our power, to find our power within it. And sometimes that means accepting certain things as the way they are is the best way to play this game. Let's see. Mars and Saturn rules my life. Anytime I see hard aspects, I look out. Yes. Okay. So, Mars, Mercury, Cazimi, I got a scar on my head. This is a good point, NC. I love tracking the Cazimis to different planets. This will help you understand your planets and your chart a lot better, because whatever your rising sign is, you can track the planet that rules that sign. So for me, that's Mercury. So I'm always paying more attention during Mercury Cazimis. And these are the times where I'm craziest so far. So far, that's my my assessment. But it's like, because hitting that reset button on me kind of means something isn't working and needs to be changed. Yeah, and I recommend this for people who know enough about astrology to know which planet rules you, what planet rules certain houses. I think tracking the Kazimis is a really fun way to learn because you can see what happened on that and you'll know what it is. And this is how I think we should approach our chart a little bit more, is to look at what actually happened and use that as our baseline. And I think this is another thing that some astrologers miss, is that some astrologers who are, especially the more really, really modern spiritually ones, are not doing this. All right, so this is going to be last call for questions. If you have a question you want to ask on this one. Also, a couple of announcements. One is that my April schedule is open for booking, so you can book a Zoom call with me one-on-one, and we can go over your chart and look at your gifts, your blessings, your blocks, your upcoming energy. Keeping in mind that even when it comes to the upcoming energy, I'm gonna, I like the solar return chart. So that's from one birthday to the next. So that's one of the things that I do. Another thing is sometimes we can just look at the natal and you can actually set an intention for what you want clarity on. As long as it's what you want clarity on that starts from inside of you, that's what I can help with the most. So that's announcement one. Announcement number two is that you can still enter for your chance to win a 20-minute video from me. So it's like a 20-minute reading that I record and send to your inbox. You can do that by joining my email list. And there is a link in the description to do that. So I will be drawing the winner next Saturday. That's the 30th of March. So if you're watching this before March 30th, you can still get on the list and be entered to that. And I think those are my announcements that I had. So let me just check and see if there's any last questions here. I'm just kind of making sure I didn't miss anything. All right, guys. So yeah, I hope you guys have a great Sunday. If you haven't watched the Libra eclipse, that's coming up tomorrow, actually. So, and see, oh, good, I hope you do. Also, for those of you who want to book with me and maybe you really truly can't afford it, there's an application for financial assistance. Not everyone gets approved, but that is available for those who really, really need it. And what was I going to tell you guys? Oh yeah, feel free to check out the lunar eclipse in Libra video. I feel like it's a little more positive because the ruler of the solar eclipse in Aries is conjunct Saturn, and the ruler of the lunar eclipse in Libra is actually in its best place. So Venus being in Pisces brings a little bit more flow, a little bit more ease, and a little bit more loveliness to how the lunar eclipse in Libra is going to affect us. Even though Saturn's there, there's still more, more goodness, more beauty, more art involved. All right, guys, I hope you have a beautiful weekend, and I will see you all in the next video. Bye.